Namaste everyone. Happy Women's Day to everybody. Please switch on your cameras and show your beautiful faces. Don't show just boxes, boxes, boxes. Nice to see everybody. Wonderful. So we have our speaker. Miss Shailaja. One second. Sorry, 1 second. There's some noise. Let me fix it. Okay.
Unmute and talk.
So happy Women's Day to everyone. Shailaja ji, can you try to see if you can unmute? I'm not able to do that. Something is. Can you try now?
Get me back on any desk.
Why are you not able to unmute yourself? Sorry, give me a few minutes. I'm so sorry for the delay. Let me solve this first. Yes, you are unmuted, Shailaja. Not very clear. Shailaja, try to talk. I think it's on. No, your volume is still very low. Can't hear you clearly. Can you see, try to increase the volume of your system? There seems to be, are you using any mic? Because there seems to be some disturbance in the audio. Is what you are using. Can you try to see not to connect the mic and
So you want me to?
Yeah, because this is completely not audible. Yeah, can you just remove your earphone and whatever you are using and use the system only?
Yeah, is that better now?
Oh, much better. Thank you. That earphone was giving trouble. Thank you so much. Thank you. So welcome everyone. Happy Women's Day to all the participants who are here today. And happy Women's Day to Shailaja ji, who is here to share her knowledge. I have been in touch and seeing her activities for quite some time, but this might be the first chance I would also get to listen to her. And I'm looking forward to it, and I hope everybody else is also looking forward to it. And if anybody has questions or doubts after her speech or during her speech, please put it in the chat box down and we'll take it at the end. Once she finishes, then we'll take all the questions one by one from there. So you please keep your chat box open and type it there. Shailaja ji, you are one of the co-hosts for the meeting. So if you have anything you would like to share on the screen with everybody, you could do it on your own as you will be the co-host. If require anything from my end, you could ask and I'll be there to help. Without wasting any further time, I'll hand it over to you.
So namaste everyone, and especially to Nidhi for inviting me to share my love and passion for yoga. And I think YogaPlus is the name of a wonderful center. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share. And I would also want to wish everybody here a very happy, especially women, a very happy International Women's Day. I can't see everybody, so I can't make sure, whether it's only women. So just covering myself there. And I just would like to get started since already a few minutes have gone by trying to get this whole thing going. So right in the beginning, I would just like to say a little bit about, my journey, 22 years now since I began my yoga journey. And the yoga journey has really transformed me at every level. It has shifted my perspective to life. It has expanded my the way I view the lens through which I view life. And it has also transformed me at every level: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. So whatever I am today, I owe it all to the yoga practice, which is why I am so passionate about sharing the goodness of yoga at every opportunity I get, at every platform that I get. And I consider it a real privilege to have this opportunity. So again, Nidhi, thank you so much. Now, before I start, I also have to express my gratitude to my teachers, because again, I have understood that I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have wonderful teachers guiding me along the path. So it was Mataji Divyananda of Integral Yoga who set me on the path, who in fact encouraged me to be a yoga teacher even. And the last 18 years, my practice has been shaped by my teacher, Manoj Kaimal, here in Malaysia, who has also shaped my thinking and the way that I teach, the way that I write, everything today. And also Dr. Ananda Balyogi Bhavnani, who I came to know when the COVID happened. One good thing about it was that the online world really opened up. And I got to know him, and I became a huge fan of his relentless sharing and infinite wisdom. So gratitude to all of my teachers. And of course, I cannot forget the greatest teacher of all, Maharishi Patanjali. So we're just going to start with a very short prayer to him. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidhyakena yopakarottam pravaram munina patanjalim pranjali pranatosmi. So we'll just get started with the slides. So I'm just going to share screen. Do let me know if there is any issue. Hopefully there should be nothing. Yeah, so this is the very first slide. I hope you can all see the slide. Yeah, okay, all good? Yeah. So let me just get started. So while in India, and all of you wonderfully wise people may know that yoga is a huge philosophy, and it's not just about exercise, but in many parts of the world, especially where I live, and also in many parts of the West, yoga has really become an industry. Yeah, the yoga industry, and it is viewed completely as an exercise. Yeah, so about twisting your body and becoming like a pretzel. But as all of us know, that the yoga practice, the expanded version of yoga practice, is really that it is about samadhi. Yeah, according to Sage Vyasa also, yoga is samadhi. And according to Maharishi Patanjali as well, yoga is samadhi. And in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, he lays down this beautiful path for us, step-by-step path for us, with the beginning with the yamas and niyamas, and then there's asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, leading to samadhi. Yeah, so these are the 8 limbs of yoga, very popularly known as Ashtanga Yoga. Yeah, Ashtanga stands for, Ashta stands for 8 and Anga is the limbs. So we'll be going into some of them later on, but this is just to give you a broad overview, yeah, of what I'm going to be speaking. So we're going to start with just a broad awareness of what yoga is. Like I said, most of you must be knowing all this, but there may be some who are, are not so familiar. So I'm just going to start with that, and then I'm going to go into the existential reasons, yeah, why we have, when we're talking about wellness, there's obviously some illness around. Yeah, so we have to go there as well. And why do we practice yoga? So this again is a very powerful sutra given in the very second verse of the first chapter of the Yoga Sutras. Yeah, so Maharishi Patanjali says, Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So the whole reason we practice yoga, yeah, is encapsulated in this one sutra. Yeah, so this is also very relevant to what we are talking about today, because our topic today is mental wellness. Yeah, and this very sutra tells us that the whole of the yoga practice is really towards that, to still these vrittis, yeah, of the chitta. And these vrittis, to make it easily understandable, I see it as these emotional disturbances. Yeah, so even if we take the last 24 hours, okay, our minds have gone through so many ups and downs. Yeah, we were happy at one time, we were worried at one time, we were disappointed at the other time, we were angry and irritated at the third time. So just in 24 hours, right? Forget 24 hours, just in the last 10 minutes, right? Trying to get the sound going, trying to get this whole, talk going, right? So many different emotions we're going through, right? So, the whole practice is about stilling these waves of the mind. And then here another very wonderful sutra comes in. This is actually a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which also defines what is yoga practice. And it says, Samatvam yoga uchyate. Yeah, so this word sama is very important. Sama stands for evenness, sama stands for balance, for equanimity. So as you can see, whether it is the Yoga Sutras or it is the Bhagavad Gita, right, all of it talk about this state of equanimity, yeah, the state of sama, the state of balance, right? And that is what our yoga practice takes us towards. And our essential state, so this is given in the Vedanta as well, our essential state is Sat Chit Ananda. Yeah, so Ananda is here as bliss. So even if we can't experience bliss, all the time, at our individual levels, we can all experience wellness. Yeah, we can all experience that state of happiness, and that is what I'm going to lead you towards, how we get there. So just to say that even in the scriptures, in that broad definition, it says that we are all capable of ananda. So I'm leaning here into Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri, Dr. Ananda Balyogi Bhavnani's father and guru, who talks, this is the broad awareness of why we are unwell. Yeah, this existential crisis per se, right? The first disease is the sense of duality, leading to fear that creates imbalances of the mind, leading to diseases in the body. Yeah, so this duality, this separation that we all experience when we are in this embodied state, that is one of the reasons, or that is that broad-based reason that we all suffer. Yeah, we all have fear, we have anxiety, all of that, because we know that we're always reaching for that union back to our original self. So this is that broad understanding that we all have this, existential fear in us. Yeah, and this fear creates imbalances, and imbalances result in manifestations in the body. So this again brings me back to a very important concept of mind body. Yeah, so mind body medicine, all of that has become hugely popular today, but the original mind body doctors were really our yogis. Yeah, so even 5,000 years ago, in another very sacred text called the Yoga Vashishta, there in a dialogue between sage Vashishta and Lord Rama, there is this concept of Adija Vyadi, yeah, which is that vyadi of the adi. Yeah, adi is the psyche. Yeah, so in medical terms today, it's called psychosomatic illness, which simply means that when we have illness in the mind, yeah, in the manner of fear, anxiety, all of that results in manifestation of disease in the body, right? So this was already said so many years ago. And now today, science reiterates the very same thing. Because now if you look at statistics, they say a 90% or 95, that a percentage may differ, but majority of all illnesses today, whether it is heart disease or whether it is cancer, they say have their roots in stress, yeah, including infertility, including gastrointestinal problems. All of them have their roots in stress. And where is the stress? The stress is experienced in our minds, yeah, the adi. So you can see that today, I always say science is always catching up with yoga. So you can see today that what has been said more than 5,000 years ago is actually being, echoed by science even today. Yeah, so it's very important to know all this, because then we become more aware of, I always say the conversation about health has to begin with our minds, yeah, and the state of our mental health, which is very ignored. Because everything is like, okay, you have a problem with your hand, you just look at your hand. You have a problem with your stomach, you just look at your stomach. Nobody goes to the root cause. Yeah, so in order for us to explore that, in order for us to really connect to the root cause of diseases, we have to look at the mind and the state of our mental health. So going down to the level of the human being, so why is it that we suffer, right? Why are we not in that exalted state? And that is because we are all, we are inherent with kleshas. Yeah, so the kleshas are considered these problems, or these mental issues that do not allow us to experience our essential state. And the kleshas are avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha. Yeah, and avidya is considered the root klesha or the mother klesha. Yeah, so they say everything springs from avidya. Yeah, so avidya is described in many ways as ignorance, but to understand that ignorance is the root cause of all the other kleshas that we have as well, right? So from ignorance stems asmita, the sense of I-ness or mindness, right? And that's where we have all these problems. When the asmita or the ahamkara becomes so strong in us, then we cannot see beyond ourselves. And the more we get rooted in this ahamkara or asmita, then we lose more and more, we get separated from our essential self. Yeah, so more and more we get separated, and we feel the pain, we suffer because of that. So raga and dvesha again are very important to know, because raga stands for that deep attachment. So we think that attachment is a good thing or love is a good thing, but too much of anything is not good, right? So the family of love leads to attachment, leads to possessiveness, leads to so many unhealthy kind of emotions as well. So it is important, even when we say we love someone or we love something, we have to see the whole family that comes along with it. Yeah, what are the other emotions that come along with it? And then when we consider the dvesha, this also is the opposite. It's like two sides of the same coin. It's the deep repulsion or hatred, or what that we feel. So like we're always pulled between these dualities, yeah, or what is called the dvandvas. Yeah, so either we are flowing towards raga or we are flowing towards dvesha, and that is why there is so much importance given to samatvam, yeah, to that evenness. So we're not pulled between these two different, very different kind of emotions. And then abhinivesha, they say even the wise one is afflicted by abhinivesha, the desire to live, what is also referred to as the survival instinct. Yeah, we are all born with that, and we all hold on very tightly to that. And then the survival instinct is not just about life and death, but if you translate it into your everyday life, you will see that even when something in your everyday life gets threatened, like you have to change your house, or you have to change your job, or you feel like this friend of yours, suddenly you are not the main person in their life anymore, right? Then your survival instinct kicks in. Yeah, you feel threatened, all those, you cling more deeply. So to see all of these, my whole idea is to make you see all of this in our everyday lives. Yeah, it's very easy to pass this off as just, oh, some verse in the sutras. Yeah, but it's not. It is something that we all experience on an everyday basis in all of our relationships. And for us to progress on the path of yoga, it is very important that we be familiar with all of this and we be able to see it in our lives and in our minds. Yeah, because only when we see it can we do something about it. Yeah, so I'm very sorry to tell you that we all have to give up this notion that we are perfect human beings, right? Because we all have this sense that, we are the great ones and everybody else is wrong, right? So it is so important that we let that go, that we really have the capacity to take this hard look at ourselves, that we discern, right? So the whole practice of yoga, again, even this Ashtanga yoga, is to take us towards that state where our intellect shines bright. Yeah, so that our impurities are lessened. Yeah, yoga anga anusthanat ashuddhi sheye. Yeah, the whole practice is to weaken the impurities so that the intellect shines bright. And this intellect shining bright is a minute to minute practice. Yeah, and even the capacity to simply see, to simply discern, right? When I think this thought, is it, is it coming from raga, is it coming from dvesha, is it coming from abhinivesha, is it coming from asmita? It is so important to be able to discern all of this. Yeah, eventually yoga practice, like it's given in the Bhagavad Gita also, should be ruled by the intellect. Yeah, that should lead the way. So to see these practices, to see these terms in our everyday life on a moment to moment basis, that is the idea. Yeah, so I can give you all this information, but I really hope that you will see it reflected in your thinking. Yeah, because that is the only way that we will grow in yoga or grow on the spiritual path. Yeah, and as Dr. Ananda, one of his favorite lines is that the currency of spiritual growth is self effort. Yeah, so unless we put in that effort, we are not going to grow. So please see all of this in our lives, right? So coming down again from the kleshas, what happens? All of these issues we face, right? We get so identified in all of our different roles. Yeah, so ahamkara, the stronger, like I said, the stronger ahamkara gets, the stronger we identify with all of these different roles. I'm a mom, I'm a dad, I'm the boss, I'm the employee, right? I'm the teacher. So we become so identified with these roles. But the problem is we also are aware, right, that there are vulnerabilities and fragilities to each of these roles and identities. Yeah, we all know one of, if you go deeper into avidya, one of the avidyas is nitya. Yeah, we tend to seek permanence, but the very nature is impermanence of everything, right? Whether it is the breath flowing in and out of our bodies, whether it is jobs that come and go, whether it is relationships that come and go, the very nature of all things is impermanence, whether it is the seasons of the year or whether it is the tides. So we have to understand, and we have an understanding that each identity can, we can lose grip on that at any moment. And because of that, it makes us very anxious, very worried, very frustrated. Yeah, even a very sacred role like motherhood, right? So we think we're going to be moms forever, but even that role, yeah, when our child is a 1 year old baby, the way our child needs us and the way our child relates to us is very different when your child is 23 years old and on their own. Yeah, so even there, there is an anitya, there is an impermanence. So all of this results in anxiety, worry, frustration. And as women, so coming, this is a very generalized view, but coming down to women, I was just looking at some statistics for this talk today, and it was really shocking to see that more women are affected by mental health issues. Yeah, so they say, like this chart says, that more, twice as many women attempt suicide than men, and even eating disorders like anorexia and bulimia, there are 3 times as women who resort to all of that. Alcohol dependence, all of these issues, depression, all of this seems to afflict more women than men. Yeah, so women do have a natural susceptibility to mental health issues, right? And then I want to qualify here that when I say mental health issues, you don't need to commit suicide or want to commit suicide. Yeah, it's not even those deep issues, but just waking up in the morning not feeling great about the day, feeling listless, absolutely low energy, feeling sluggish, not having an interest in anything, all of these also qualify as mental health issues. Yeah, because we want to live life with optimism, with inspiration, giving our best to every day and every role that we're called to play. But all of that we cannot do if you're feeling, disheartened and, generally not inspired about life. So when I say mental health issues, it's all of that as well. Yeah, not just because when you listen to this, you can say, okay, I don't have anorexia or I don't have bulimia, but it's not just that, right? How is our attitude every day? How do we wake up in the morning, right? What is the energy of our minds? All of that is so important. And women also unfortunately have this, again, are also prone. There are some statistics here that talk about how in the US, I just got some US and UK statistics, the latest ones I tried to get. So in 2021 they said 1 in 5 women had a common mental health problem such as anxiety or depression, and 25.8% of women had some kind of mental illness in the US between 2008 and 2020. Yeah. And also, women are more prone, unfortunately, towards physical and sexual abuse, right? Many women, many girls suffer all of this growing up, yeah, leading to post-traumatic stress disorders and long-term impact on their mental health, right? So all of this, either you yourself would have suffered this, or you will definitely know of people who have gone through this. And some of these issues, we can't even talk about it to other people, right? And we just keep it locked inside ourselves. And if we don't reconcile with it, if we don't assimilate it into our lives, then it is these kind of traumas that go on and create, manifest as illness later on in our lives, right? So we have to know that all of this is real, all of this affects us as women, and especially sexual abuse. It's very rampant, and it's so traumatic because it's very hard to talk about it as well to anybody. So also women tend to be carers, right? So if there's an old person at home, if there are babies, young children, it's more women who tend to stay back and look after them, and all of that results in isolation as well, right? Men go out, have jobs, but sometimes women stay back, and then there's isolation and the anxiety that comes along with that. So the other problem that purely women face, as a result, is hormones. Yeah, so the hormones really take us for a roller coaster ride. I have had a student even come to me and says she just locks herself up for a week before her menstruation is due, because she says her mood swings are so bad and she doesn't want to hurt her family. So these again are very real issues that women face. Yeah, it's not just, don't let anybody tell you that you're just imagining it, as some men tend to dismiss it. Yeah, so women go through menstruation where there are huge hormonal changes in the body. There's also pregnancy and childbirth, and there's also menopause and the years leading to menopause, perimenopause. So all of this create a huge amount of imbalance in the body, right? So there's a drop in estrogen and progesterone can make us irritable and anxious. Stress hormone cortisol can lead to anxiety and depression. And estrogen levels also affect all the organ systems, yeah, like the musculoskeletal systems, the cardiovascular systems, as well as the brain. Yeah, so to know that these are real, so we have to find ways. These are uniquely women's issues. And when it comes to pregnancy and childbirth as well, depression is so common. There is depression during pregnancy, there is depression after pregnancy, and a lot of this is just glossed over, right? Nobody really takes the young mother seriously, and as a result of which the mother suffers. Yeah, so all of these issues are real for women. And now we're going to go into, this is a very favorite verse of mine. Yeah, this again is a part of a prayer to Maharishi Patanjali. Yeah, but to me, this really encapsulates why we practice yoga, or what is the greatness of yoga. Yeah, for me, the greatness of yoga practice is that it is an experiential practice. Yeah, in that you truly experience different states of mind, and you truly feel like words are not just words. When you say relax, it can just be a word, but in your yoga practice you actually feel that, right? When you say peace, peace is just a word, but you can actually sense a shift through your asana practice, through your pranayama practice. You can really sense a shift in the state of your mind, and you can truly connect with that state of peace. Yeah, so that is the greatness of yoga practice. And this verse for me is really the reason why I practice yoga as well. Swa Atma Sukhava Bodhe. Yeah, so this, like I said, this is a part of a prayer, Vande Gurnam Charnaravinde. So the practice directs you or awakens you. Bodha is awaken, awakens you to your own inner bliss or your own inner sukham. Yeah, sukham is a beautiful word, right? So it comes even in the Yoga Sutras, right? The reason we practice asana is stiram sukham asana. Yeah, so the sukham word is such a great word. Yeah, it's about ease. Yeah, and when there is ease and when there is harmony, there is also shantam, which is peace. Yeah, so all of this is the reason why I am so passionate about the yoga practice, because our whole lives we are brought up needing to meet external points, right? We have to get into this college, we have to make these grades. It starts from childhood, right? I mean, parents consciously or unconsciously put pressure on their kids, right? You have to get these kind of grades, you have to go into these kind of streams, you have to get this kind of a job. All of us do it, and always we grow up having to meet these external goals. But the beauty of yoga practice is it directs you towards your own inner bliss. Yeah, so I really hope that you can sense the beauty of this line, and you can really feel it. Like I said, the beauty of yoga is not that it's just a word or a line. You truly feel it. Yeah, through your practice you connect to your own inner sukham. And as we begin the practice on, or as we begin the part on how do we deal with all of this, one very principal uh, slide is this, which talks about the mind body continuum. Yeah, so that again is something like we talked about it earlier in the whole psychosomatic connection, and this is just that. Yeah, it's the mind body continuum, to understand that our mind, and though in modern medicine and modern science everything used to be separated, at least to know that our mind and our body is deeply connected. Yeah, and every single thought, emotion releases different hormones in the body. It can be happy hormones or it can be stressful hormones, depending on the nature of our thoughts. So when we are on a perception of threat, survival and fear-based structures of the brain. So this is again something very interesting, because like I said, we think these wonderful human beings, highly evolved, the king of the species kind of. But to know that we have really evolved from that reptilian stage. We have all been snakes and lizards, and we have come through the mammalian stage, and then only we have evolved, at least physically, into human beings. But it is so fascinating that all of these brains are still there within us. Yeah, so when you look at the brain as well, even in science, they talk about all of this. They call it the three brains. Yeah, where there is the lizard brain, which is the brainstem, cerebellum, hypothalamus. And then there is the mammalian brain, which is part of the limbic system. And there is also that highly evolved part of the brain that we take so much pride in, the cortex, which is especially the prefrontal cortex, which has the capacity for reasoning and which has the capacity for logic and taking decisions, all of that, yeah, conscious thought and action. So it is so important for us to understand that, because when we have thoughts, Sometimes our motivation don't come from that evolved part of the brain, but come from these aspects. Yeah, and that especially when we feel threatened, right? It is that survival structure of the brain, which is that lizard brain or reptilian brain, which activates all the responses. So again, all of this is just for us to know, right? Because otherwise, like jealousy, envy, the need to get back, right? The need to backstab people. All of this is not. It's not human. Yeah. Though we like appear human beings, we have all these very, very primitive instincts rooted deep within us. So it's so important that we are aware of it, and it's so important that we have that capacity for swadhyaya or self study, and we be able to look into all of this and all of these negative emotions that come up as a result of that. Yeah, you have the shatru pose as well, right, where we have all these negative emotions. They express as knots of delusion or avidya, and they reside in different layers of our being. Yeah. So in Vedanta, they have this concept of panchakoshas, right? So we're not just this external shape that we are so interested in connecting with and so interested that consumes our every waking moment, right? The shape of our bodies. And we have to know that we are so much more than that. And that is only one layer, the external layer, the annamaya. And there is the layer of the prana, pranamaya kosha, and then there is the layer of the mind, the manomaya, and then there is a layer of the intellect, which is vijnanamaya. And these kind of negative situations, trauma, all of that resides in all of these different layers of our being. Yeah, all of these different koshas. And through our practice, through our yoga practice, the whole practice is towards unknotting, yeah, all of these knots. So like we spoke, I think I touched on this earlier about the buddhi. So the whole of yoga practice is directed towards being a buddhi yukta practice. Yeah, a practice that is really tied or reined in by the buddhi. So the whole practice, from the minute we sit down, close our eyes, right? And then we will do a very short sit right now, just to give you an idea of what I'm speaking. But the whole practice, even when you become aware in the asana and the posture, right? Become aware of your right leg, become aware of your right knee, become aware of your left big toe. All of that is to keep that discernment alive, is to keep your buddhi active. Yeah. So the practice, the whole practice goes towards awakening the buddhi, yeah, bodha buddhi, and not the grip of delusion that we are all under. And for that, how do we do that? Like the Ashtanga Yoga. And in that, yamas and niyamas, I'm just touching on a few. So yamas and niyamas are really the foundational aspects of the practice. Yeah, though when you just go to a regular yoga class once a week and all of that, the whole focus is the body, right? But we have to know as a serious yoga practitioners that yamas and niyamas lay down the whole foundation for our practice, because there is no, it cannot even be an asana practice without the yamas and niyamas being there. Yeah, and to understand that all of these are not separated. Like human mind always separates everything. Yeah, but all of these are integrated. In asana, you can bring in the yamas, you can bring in the niyamas, you can bring in all of the different limbs, the dharana, eventually even Maharishi Patanjali himself says, right, there are only 3 verses on asana in the Yoga Sutras. But in one of them, he talks about that, right? About Pratna Shaitalyam Ananta Samapatipyam. So when we release, when we ease that effort, then we connect to that state of Ananta Samapatipyam. So yamas, niyamas, asana, pranayama, and mantra. Yeah, so these are all very beautiful practices that help us to unknot the knots of delusion or clinging, yeah, that we all do in our ignorance, avidya. So when we come to yamas and niyamas, the biggest importance Maharishi Patanjali gives, in fact, he mentions it twice. Yeah, so if you go to the second chapter, the first verse also talks about Kriya Yoga. Yeah, so in the niyamas, there is tapas, swadhyaya, and Ishvara pranidhana. So I think I'll just touch on this. Swadhyaya to me is really the root. Yeah, because swadhyaya is that capacity to look within. So while swadhyaya is defined as, learning of the scriptures, it is also the capacity to look at your own self. Yeah, with that state of non-judgmental awareness, simply to see, simply to observe, to know, before we can transform. So this again, like even Robin Sharma says, that the first step to transformation is awareness, right? If we're not even aware of where we are, we will never move from there. We're always stuck. Yeah. So to get unstuck, the key is to be aware. The key is to be able to see ourselves, to see the modulations of the mind, to see all these different formations that come and go, the different vrittis, the different kleshas, to be able to identify them, to be able to discern. And like I said, all of these are moment to moment practices. It's there all the time. Yeah. And we just have to be able to look at it. But for that, like I said, we have to put away the notion that we are perfect human beings and that every thought is a gospel truth. It's not. Yeah. So we have to just be able to objectively witness our thoughts and say, okay, this is coming from a need to ahankara's need to kind of establish itself. This is coming from dvesha. This is not really you. And you have to keep seeing your mind. And it's so interesting also that the same thing is talked about today even by neurologists. Yeah. So I follow some brain doctors, and there's a Dr. Daniel Amen who I follow, who's one of the foremost brain neurophysicians in America. And he says the same thing. He says you have to have that capacity to look at your mind. And he even gives this hack where he says you can even give your mind a different name. Yeah. So you understand that, that it's just the, mind behaving and, doing its thing. But we don't have to get caught up in that. So here, when we look at it through the lens of the yoga, they talk about our, antakarnas. Yeah, so there is the manas, there is the buddhi, there is ahamkara. So it is just a constant interplay between all of this. Yeah, and like I said, the thrust of the practice is to keep that buddhi yukta practice, to keep the buddhi on top. Yeah, and this is also very clearly demonstrated in that beautiful picture in the Bhagavad Gita, yeah, where Lord Krishna holds the reins, right? So that also describes the same thing where the intellect, we have to hold the reins of the intellect, yeah, the reins of the senses and the mind. And then only will the chariot of our body be steered in the correct direction. So Swadhyaya is a very core practice. And then once we see what is not right in the way that we think or in the way that we act, we have to put in tapas. Yeah, again, tapas can be so many things. Tapas can be fasting once a week. Tapas can be doing 100 Surya Namaskars, right? All of that is tapas. But to me, the most difficult tapas is that capacity to stand up against established patterns, what we call samskaras. Yeah, so we all are conditioned, like I just said, we all come from reptiles and we come from mammals, and we come from so many different lifetimes. And like I said, we're not even aware, right, of all that primitive conditioning that gets us to act in a certain way or gets us to think in a certain way. But when we can see it, and when we realize that that's not really right, that's not really helping us, right, then we can put in the tapas to stand up against that, make a conscious choice. Yeah. So again, here I'm quoting Dr. Ananda as another favorite line of his, that the capacity to make a choice, yeah, is the superhuman capacity of a human being. Right. So we talked about all these different brains, and then that prefrontal cortex. That is what gives us that capacity to make choices, which makes us truly human, right? So you can't ask a dog to make a choice. You can't ask a lion to make a choice, right? It is only human beings who have that capacity. And that is why we are the only beings who are capable of lifting our own lives. Yeah. So asana again is a very beautiful practice. The next few slides are about asana, so I'm not touching onto this. Pranayama again, as all of you know, it is working with the energy. It's not just about air flowing in and out the nostrils. It is really working with that universal energy. Yeah. So as we inhale, it is prana that flows into us. And as we exhale out, we release back that prana. So it is a beautiful way in which we engage in an enhancing relationship with the universe around us. Yeah, again, mantra is very beautiful practice as well, which lifts our minds through vibration. So let me just go into it a little bit later. I'm just looking at the time. So Stiram Sukham Asana, like I said, Sukham is a core word in yoga practice. Sukham is, right? So to me, even that can be a mantra. Whenever you're feeling stressed, whenever you're feeling anxious, if you just mentally repeat Sukham, right, there is a ease that comes into every level of your being, physical, mental, energy wise. Yeah, and this is a very core aspect of the practice and what I'm going to talk about. As in, we talked a lot about the psychosomatic benefit of asana practice, but of yoga practice. But in asana, there is also the reverse, which is the somatopsyche effect. Yeah, so as we create, these are not just shapes. Yeah, so my teacher Manoj Kamal would always say the whole practice is from shape of the body to state of mind. Yeah, so as we create these shapes with the body, it is not just about putting our body in different shapes, but about creating whatever state of mind that we choose. Yeah, so in science terms, they call it self-directed neuroplasticity, right? So in the beginning, they thought that we are just doomed by the brains that we have. But later on, they found out that the brains are constantly changing. Our every act shapes the brain. Yeah, and our brains are so plastic. So we are utilizing that plasticity to create that positive state of mind. And like the different asanas that we do, the series of asanas. So when you want to feel uplifted, when you're feeling a bit disappointed, you're feeling a bit down, you're feeling a bit depressed, right, you're feeling a bit anxious, the most wonderful asanas to do are back bends. Yeah, so this is a Kapotasana here, which I've shown, but even positions like Bhujangasana, right? So when you do that, you roll back through the shoulders, externally rotate the shoulders, keep the heart space open, keep it lifted, right? That instantly creates, through that somatopsyche effect, it instantly creates a open, confident state of mind. And then if you look at the tree pose, the Vrikshasana, right, that again is a pose of stability. And when we stand in this position and when we connect to the concept of the tree, right, we really imbibe those qualities of the tree, yeah, which is stability, which is rootedness, groundedness, balanced, right? All of that we can get from this Vrikshasana. And then you see Shirsasana is the last position that I put, an inversion, right? So when we go into inversion, so you don't have to go into Shirsasana, but any inversion that brings the head below the heart, yeah, all of that allows us to view the world with a different perspective. Yeah, because ultimately perspective is everything. Yeah, so there's another slide on that, so I'm not going to go into that now. But all I'm saying here from these asanas and these shapes is that these help us to create, right? It gives us the power. By embodying these shapes, we have the power to create whatever state of mind that we seek. So, like I said, the somatopsychic effect of asana, from shape of the body to state of the mind. Yeah, I'll just go ahead. So, as we open the hearts to the present moment, we release the physiology of stress and the psychology of stress to releases. Yeah, so this is again a very important concept, that through asana practice, right, we think we are lengthening the hamstrings and we think we are maybe stretching the glutes, but to understand that we are also releasing that. As we release the tightness and we release the rigidity and the inflexibility, we are also releasing stress. Because like we talked about it in the beginning, we talked about trauma. Yeah, and we talked about how all of us carry trauma, and a lot of adults, in fact, when they speak to, trauma is created in childhood. Yeah, when we don't have the capacity to reason, or we don't have the capacity to choose, and we are very dependent on people who bring us up, and sometimes because of their insensitivity, right, we have various kinds of traumas, emotional traumas, sexual traumas that we all go through. And all of that, we carry scars. Yeah, nothing is an end to itself. Everything leaves its imprint on our psyche, and we carry those imprints as scars throughout our life unless we do these practices. And these practices help us to release, so we don't even have to think about the trauma. Okay, I'm speaking a lot of this from personal experience. We don't even have to consciously say, oh, I want to release this particular trauma. No, just do the practice mindfully with your mind, with your breath, and all the trauma that you hold, all of it naturally eases without even knowing, right? We don't know why we feel so heavy. We don't know why we feel so dull and listless, why we have no energy. It is because all of this is embedded in our bodies. We carry all of this trauma within us in our bodies. So, to me, one of the most powerful benefits of asana practice is that it gives us a way to release trauma safely, unconsciously, without having to talk about it and traumatize ourselves even more, without having to discuss it with strangers, right? We have the capacity to just do our practice regularly, and we find that the trauma is eased. And then we're going into perspective. Like I said, I have a whole slide on perspective. So this is to come down to say that ultimately our life is our story. Yeah, so there is nothing as the absolute truth, because there can be one event which can be so truthful to one person, like the usual example I give is somebody loses their job, right? So it can be the end of the world for one person, and it is true for that person. But for another person, it could be just an opportunity to do something different, right? Another person may use this as an excuse to go into alcoholism, or fourth person may go into depression, right? So the event is the same, but ultimately it is the way that we view the event that determines the event, what the event is for us. And this is also very, very powerful because it puts the power in our own hands, right? Because it is our story, and we have the capacity to create whatever story that we want. We can create an empowering story. We can create a positive story, right, out of something really negative that happened to us. Right? Say we were traumatized in our childhood, we were sexually abused, right? But today we can draw on all of that and say that made me who I am today, and that is why I am standing here and speaking all this, right? So to understand that we have the power, whatever have been the circumstances in our life, we don't have to dwell in it in a negative way, and we have the power to change it into a really positive, empowering story. Yeah, and this is that beautiful concept given in the sutras by Maharishi Patanjali, Pratipaksha Bhavana. So he not just talks about what creates problems, which is, kleshas, and which again results in karma, and then it keeps us in that whole cycle of samsara. But he tells us, how do we get out of that? Right? So this is the antidote or the medicine that he gives, Pratipaksha Bhavana, where it is about creating an opposite thought. Yeah, so I say maybe we are not able to, somebody hate somebody, we could have good reason, right, where we genuinely dislike somebody intensely. While it may not be possible to say, oh, I love that person, which is the opposite thought, but we can always make allowances for them, right? We can expand, we can say, okay, maybe this happened, maybe that person was going through this situation, right? So we have the capacity to expand our perspective of the situation and to understand that the person we hurt is ourselves. Yeah, by holding on to a negative story, we hurt ourselves. So by making allowances for people, we are actually really allowing ourselves to be released from that cage or that prison of negative feelings, right? So, Pratipaksha Bhavanam, these are beautiful phrases to keep in mind. And again, the whole, everything I write and speak is based on the sutras. I'm a huge fan of Maharishi Patanjali. So again, I'm just drawing on the sutras, right? He talks about cultivating these beautiful attitudes. Yeah, he gives us Maitri, Mudita, Karuna, Upekshanam, where by cultivating these attitudes of friendship, goodwill, compassion, and equanimity, right, we are creating that positive and beautiful state of mind. Yeah. So when we talk about higher states of consciousness like dharana, dhyana, samadhi, for all of those states to happen, we need to have really, like the example I give is a gardener. Yeah, so for flowers to bloom, the gardener has to first take off all the weeds, and then it has to put in, like it has to put in some fertilizer. It has to, give it nice sunshine, right? It has to make sure it's placed where it can get sunshine. It has to give it some water, right? So all of that is this, to me, is this Maitri Mudita Karuna Upekshana. Yeah, so kleshas will be the weeds that, we are becoming conscious of through swadhyaya and tapas, and we're trying to take out. And then through the Chatur Bhavanam, we actually put in all of this good stuff, right? And we create that beautiful, equanimous mindscape. Yeah, so this is a word I picked up from my teacher, Manoj Kaimal. So, like a landscape, right? So, you create a beautiful mindscape. Yeah, so that when these seeds of concentration and all of them are planted, it can blossom with a beautiful fruit of meditation. Yeah, because if the soil is not tended to, if the soil is full of anger and resentment and ill will, then believe me, all these are just words like concentration, dharana, dhyana, all of them will never take root. Yeah, so it is so important to cultivate that beautiful mindscape. Yeah, remember the gardener. So for that, these are all that. So the Chatur Bhavana was one. And then gratitude is the highest attitude, Kritagnyata. So I am a huge fan of gratitude practices. I personally practice them. I have a gratitude journal, and I encourage all my students to keep a gratitude journal. So I'm just sharing that with all of you because, again, it's neuroplasticity. Yeah, so they, in science, they do have, something that says that our minds are typically wired towards negativity. Yeah, they call it a negativity bias. And like I'm just reminding you over and over again, right? We evolved from very primitive conditions, right? So at that point, this negativity bias was probably what saved us, right? We had to anticipate, danger around every bush. We had to, keep ourselves safe from tigers and lions. And that's probably the reason we even survived at that point. Yeah, so it was necessary for our evolutionary journey. And maybe even today, they say, I've read some studies which say a little bit of, anxiety is necessary. Yeah, otherwise we'll go jump off the cliff and think everything will be fine, or we'll, put our hands in the fire and get burned. So a little bit of that is necessary. But today, our minds have been so wired that we see tigers, right, with the spouses in our house or the maids in our house, right? We view them as very dangerous human beings. And then when we go in the car as well, every other driver we think is going to attack us or pounce on us. And then when we go to the office, again, the stress levels are high because our boss becomes the, person that we have to fight against. So constantly stress levels are very high. Yeah, so these gratitude practices are very important to rewire the brain. Yeah, to really self-directed neuroplasticity, to bring the brain to activate different areas of the brain. So different areas of the brain are also capable of different emotions. So there is the fear center, which is the amygdala, which is constantly, fearful, anxious. So it's in the shape of a nut. Yeah, so my teacher would say that it is the nut that drives you nuts. Yeah, so hopefully this way you'll remember the amygdala. So all of this will soothe, right, that constant activity of the amygdala. And then it also, through the practices, it helps us to activate more positive centers of the brain. So gratitude is a great practice in your everyday life. And also philosophies are so important, like knowledge, right? So knowledge of the yamas and niyamas, knowledge about, the yoga philosophy. And the Bhagavad Gita has this beautiful verse in the second chapter, karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So always we are in that survival mode. Yeah, we want to be one up on people. We want to get this result. We want to attach our joy or satisfaction or self-esteem only to achieving a certain end goal. And that puts so much of stress on us. Yeah, we're on a constant cortisol overdrive. So all of this philosophy is so important because it tells us that our job is to just to do the work. Yeah, whatever is called on us, we do, but not to be attached to the fruit of the action. Yeah, so when we have these kind of attitudes, it reduces our stress levels, right? It reduces and shifts the way we see life as well. Then life doesn't become that constant. Remember, we have raga dvesha, we have all these polarities that we're constantly spinning between. Okay, win or loss, and profit or gain, right? We're always between all of this. But once we have this kind of an attitude, then we are able to stay in the middle. We're able to stay balanced. Remember, Samatvam Yoga Uchate, we're able to be centered and grounded and not lose it over every single, because there are no end to milestones. Yeah, because when the milestones about you end, the milestones about your children will begin. So there is no end to this. So it is better to have the wisdom, to let your intellect guide the mind and really educate the mind that there is no point in constantly comparing and constantly putting up all of these, pointers just to fail and be miserable about yourself, right? So again, these are all beautiful attitudes. Sharnagati, Ishwara Pranidhana. Ishwara Pranidhana is one of the most beautiful attitudes to think. Like all of this, we have to think about and contemplate. Yeah. And then at times we apply it in our life and then we see the wisdom in it. Yeah. So to me, again, in our asana practice, when we do forward bends, it's a beautiful gesture of surrender. Yeah. It's a gesture of surrender. It's a gesture of letting go, right? It's a gesture of just giving it up to a higher intelligence. So I always say in life, 2 plus 2 is never 4. Yeah. So though we have this analytical, rational brain and we think everything has to logically fit, it doesn't. Yeah. Trauma happens, stress happens, people get diseases, children die, wars happen, right? All of this happens all the time to all of us. So we have to have some way of dealing with it without getting smashed. And that is where this beautiful principle of Ishwara Pranidhana comes in, where it reminds us, yeah, it reminds us that, uh, we can do everything, but ultimately there is a higher wisdom, there is a greater plan, there is a greater perspective that we at this point with our limited minds and our limited perspective is not aware of. So instead of trying to make sense of everything with our limited minds, we give it up to the higher mind. Yeah, so Ishwara Pranidhana is a wonderful principle and it saves us. To me, it saves us during so many occasions when we have trauma and when we have grief and we can't make sense of the world. And Sharanagati is very similar in its meaning. Yeah. So this is just a beautiful quote by B.K. Iyengar Guruji, that yoga is a light which will never dim, and the greater your practice, I think the higher your flame. It's kind of covered here. So yeah, this is these are just my details, and I just want to ask Nidhi. Nidhi, do we have a few minutes, or is I've run out of time? It's really up to you. I just wanted to do a short practice. Just wondering.
Let me open it and ask the participants.
Oh, we can do questions because there were supposed to be questions, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that would be better, more interactive.
Yes. So
Okay, so I'm going to stop share. Yeah?
Thank you. So, if any of you have anything you would like to ask, any doubts, questions?
Ma'am, can you just share the last slide of your address, please? Address, website, and all. Yeah, thank you so much. It was a wonderful session, ma'am.
If anybody else has any doubts,
Please share that karma slide once. That karma slide. Karma.
You went back on mute, Shailaja ji.
Karmanyevadikaraste, is this the one?
Yes, ma'am. Can you please explain it once more, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so Karmanyevadikaraste, our job or our dharma, I think dharma is a better word, yeah, is to action. Yeah, not to the fruit of the action. Ma phaleshu tadachana. And it is also not towards inaction. So then you can say, okay, I'm not going to get any fruit, might as well I not do anything. Yeah, so that also is not allowed. Yeah, so it is not towards inaction either. So the general message that comes through is that our focus should be on the job. and not focused on the results. Yeah, because sometimes when we think of results, then we might as well not, we won't even start the job because we'll say, oh, we're not going to get there. But life unfolds step by step. And with each step, if you do your best, the next step will unfold well. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
One last slide, ma'am. Last slide, 1 minute. The last slide of your address.
What I'll do is I'll share the image of this on the group for everybody, and you people will have it for.
Yeah.
Ma'am,
So
do you
free to
tips
contact me.
and how to deal with toxic in-laws, and if husband is not supporting you, everyone is against you, how to manage oneself in that situation, be positive when everything is against us, how to deal in that situation.
Yeah, this is a really hard one because even if you don't find support from your husband, that is quite hard. But to me, the only thing that saves us is philosophy. Yeah. So we have to have that understanding that eventually our journey is our own. And like Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Uddharet Atma Atmanam, we have to lift ourselves by ourselves. Yeah, so this again is a very core principle for me, that we have to be able to really make the focus of our lives our own selves. Yeah, so like I said, I always tell people, yeah, so okay, what is yoga, yoga, samadhi, all that sounds good, right? But on an everyday basis, what do we do? How do we get there? Right? So that begins with that intense awareness of ourselves, intense awareness of our minds, working with our minds, and really trying to find the good, like this gratitude practice. Right? So maybe you have a parent who is, supportive. Maybe you have a friend who is supportive. So every day I tell people, when you write your gratitude journal, you don't have to think of big things, right? We always think, okay, nothing great happened to us. We didn't win the lottery or we didn't get a promotion at work. But it's not that. It's simple everyday things. Yeah, it's like, I'm so grateful I had this wonderful hot cup of coffee, right? Or if you can walk, like, you know, I think most of you are very young, so walking we take for granted, but even the capacity to walk. Now I'm, hitting a slightly older age, and knee pain and all of that comes in, and then I'm like, my God, how much we take for granted just the capacity to walk. Yeah, so when we focus only on the problem, then that consumes our life. Yeah, so they say in our life we have I'm not, it's not you personally, yeah, I'm sure you have your issues, deep issues. Yeah, but they say generally the mind is such that if we have 90% of our lives working and 10% that is not working, I'm just telling you about the mind, yeah, the nature of the mind. Because once we understand that, then we can apply it. Yeah, so then they say the mind has this negativity bias that it will only focus on the 10% of the life that is not working. Yeah, so they always say, suppose 10 people said, okay, great talk, Shailaja, but one person didn't say anything. You will only focus, that person didn't say anything. You will never say, oh, these other 10 people said something, right? So the mind is like that. Yeah, so we have to really understand this mind's veering towards negativity, the mind's capacity to only focus on negative stuff, which is why this gratitude practice is so important. But every day we have to build ourselves up. Yeah, so it is a difficult journey, but focus on the people that you do have in your life. Right, maybe you have supportive parents, like I always say, something bad may have happened to us, but we have to look at our life in totality, in the bigger picture. Right, so maybe we had a great childhood, maybe we had supportive parents, maybe we have great friends, maybe we have a child who loves us a lot. Like, there is always some blessing. Yeah, so to focus on the blessings and make this gratitude practice a cornerstone in your life. Yeah, every day, right? And I promise you, you will find, as we keep focusing on positive things in our life, what happens is, like now when I'm walking, right, and somebody smiles at me, right? It's nice when somebody smiles at you. So I always think, I must write this in my gratitude journal. Yeah, so slowly you will find your mind, your brain gets tuned towards picking up the positive stuff. Yeah, so it is a long journey, it is an arduous journey, I am not denying that, but these are the practices. Focus on the positives, focus on gratitude, on the good stuff that you do have in your life. Maybe it's good health, right? Again, when we have it, we take it for granted. But when we just look around, there are so many people, forget diseases, people are just dropping dead. Like I know of people who at age 60 or age 40 who have just died. Yeah, just didn't just wake up. So in this day and age now, more than anything, I feel that Anitya principle has become so prominent in our lives, that uncertainty, right? That insecurity, that concept of impermanence, right? Anything can be snatched away from us at any point. So whatever we do have, we try to focus on that and build on that. And don't give up. You just be a nice person. You just do your best. And I have seen miracles happen. Yeah, even with marriages, what marriage you had when you first got married or 10 years of marriage is very different. I see with people when it's 20 years of marriage, things change. Yeah, so there is always hope. Don't give up on hope. Just keep doing the right thing. Yeah, stay, hold on. Like I said, our yoga practice becomes the anchor in our lives. Yeah, it's something we hold on to every day. Do your asana practice because it helps you to release all the suffering, all the sadness. It helps, like I said, when we have sadness, do back bending postures, right? And do it with that artha and bhava, understanding it, feeling it, so that it's not just a mechanical practice. Yeah, that's what distinguishes asana from exercise, right? You can hold the same pose, it looks the same, right? Why is one asana and one exercise, right? Because you can wear earphones and listen to the latest pop music, and that becomes exercise. But if you do it with your full awareness, with the breathing, right? So the body, the breath, these are all your friends. Make them your friends. Yeah, develop that deep relationship with them, and they will always be there for you, and they will never hurt you.
Thank you, ma'am. Also, I would like to ask you one more question. Ma'am, how do you maintain yourself? I mean, what's the secret of your skin? You're glowing, and what's your diet like? Because I've been trying to lose weight ever since I had my daughter. It's been 3 years. I'm struggling with it. Can you please guide me a little bit on that?
So let me tell you, I'm an expert on weight loss because when I was a child, my nickname was Fatso. Okay, so I have struggled with my weight my whole life, so I know a lot about it. Ultimately, it really comes down, but your diet is very key. Yeah, so let me tell you that you cannot hope to lose weight if you do not change your diet. You have to clean up your diet. Yeah, and then, but look at the whole practice as holistic, because now our diet is not just about the body. They say our diet even affects our mood. Yeah, so it is a constant moving towards that vibrancy. Yeah, so clean up your diet. I personally practice intermittent fasting. So I was not very disciplined with eating. So I find that when it's intermittent fasting, it works for me, because when it's my fasting time, something just shuts off in my brain. I'm not looking for food anymore. And even when my kids come, because when you have kids, it's so hard. They'll be eating all the time. They'll come and give you, and then you want to taste, and then it's so hard. So, but when I find that I'm intermittent fasting, I can very easily say, no, I'm fasting. This is my fasting time. Yeah, so I find that works for me. And even in the time that you are eating, clean up your diet, right? Sugar, processed, refined carbohydrates, stuff that you buy. It is a journey. Yeah, so all I want to tell y'all is be patient, right? We all expect results overnight. It doesn't happen. Believe me, I'm in this for 22 years. Yeah, so it is a process, step by step refining of ourselves. Yeah, it is a project that we undertake. Yeah, but it is the greatest project of our life, right? But what can be a better project than just working on ourselves? Yeah, to be the best version of ourselves. So be patient. Food guidelines are there everywhere. Fasting is a great thing. It's very health, good for your body as well. It's very good for your mind also. And clean up your diet, as much as possible. Cut out refined sugar and everything white. Yeah, white bread, white rice. It's hard, but it's just a different way of eating. But the benefit is so worth it. So you will find yourself moving there step by step.
Ma'am, intermittent fasting as in you fast from night to morning, like how does it work?
Right. Yeah, so they say minimum you start with about 14 to 16 hours. They say you have to do 16 hours to really get the benefit. But when you're starting off, if you have never done it before, it can be quite challenging. So the thing is, the night time is included, so that's quite useful. So I usually start at about because I have I have to teach later on. I start fasting around 6. Yeah, so I eat my last meal before 6. And then I will eat my next meal only the next day. Yeah, so I don't have breakfast. And I just have like a brunch, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, like that. So if I do it till 12 o'clock, I get about 18 hours.
So if after having dinner at 6 we feel hungry, then what can we have? Because I can't imagine eating my dinner at 6.
Slowly, slow, like I said, this all happens slowly. You have to be patient. You don't have to start with 18 hours. Start with 12 hours. Okay, so suppose you say you start dinner at 8. So 8 to 8 in the morning, you've already got 12 hours. Yeah, then if you can just say, okay, instead of eating at 8, I will eat at 10. You've got 14 hours already. Yeah, so all I'm saying is start small, but consistency is the key to anything. Yeah, you have to keep at it. You have to believe, you have to have that vision of that life, of that person that you want to be. Yeah, and then that vision is what should draw you to do all of this. Yeah, so you want to be the best version of yourself in all the different, like we talked about the different koshas, right? So you want to be the best version of yourself physically, emotionally, energy wise, intellectually, right? So all of it is connected. So to be that best version, everything you do is important. The way that you think, the what you eat, your lifestyle, how much time do you spend watching TV, what is it that you listen to, right? Can you go out, can you exercise? And when you're talking to a friend, can you walk instead of just, simply standing, right? So it has to be the way that you live. Every aspect of your life will get connected. I hope I haven't put too much pressure on you now.
No. I'm
Step
to your
by step, okay? It happens step by step, and it is a lifelong project. Remember that. Yeah, so even my sons, I tell them, just like how I talk to them, I'm just telling you all, like I always say, life is not a sprint. Yeah, it is a marathon. So look at it, have that vision for yourself, and step by step, don't try to do everything at once, right? Say every day I'm going to, if you have, now the phones are also smart, you can count your steps. Say every day I'll do 6,000 steps, right? Every day I will try to minimize, you have to have some tapas here, yeah? So you have to put in some things that you will try to do. Okay, so maybe I will eat after, I will try to start with 12 hours of fasting, right? So maybe I, in the portion of rice, right? Maybe instead of white rice, I'll start eating brown rice. Right now, there's so much availability, right? So there's so much nutrition also going on. Like there's so many nutritionists who are so good. There's, Rujuta, who's always giving you, right? Homemade difference, what you can eat, right? Local food, all of that. So there's so much information available on your phone. So I'm not so great on diet. So I'm just telling you these things, but exactly what to use, like, I'm right now into millets. That's what I'm sharing. Yeah. So millets has become a big thing. So instead of eating, even whole wheat, you try to eat millet, ragi dosha, like, ragi bread. So you can make ragi chapatis. There's so many interesting things you can do. But the ultimate thing is have that vision of yourself. Yeah, that vision should draw you to be the highest, best version of yourself. They say human life is a gift. Yeah, so remember all the different, I don't want to keep going back to that, but it's important we know that. Yeah, we have come through so many lifetimes to be blessed with this incarnation. Yeah, and we have that vision of being the best possible version of ourselves, irrespective of circumstances, irrespective of husband, irrespective of children. We have, this is our vision for
we
ourselves.
constantly look for validation from outside, like if husband praises or in-law or somebody praises, and that's where we
Power both way. That is the greatness of yoga practice. You will find bliss in your own self. Yeah, you will enjoy it when you do an asana and you just relax. The feeling is so wonderful, right? When you do breathing practice and you just allow your breath to become soft, you just watch your breath. The breath becomes very subtle to a point where almost it's not moving. And then when you just sense your mind, your breath and your mind are connected, right? So when you sense your mind, you'll notice that quietness in your mind, that peacefulness in your mind. That's bliss. Yeah, so this you can generate yourself through your own breathing practice, through your own asana practice, by doing your gratitude practice, by keeping your mind in a good space. You don't need others. I mean, just focus on yourself. Yeah, just look at them as challenges. Yeah, and learn to. We have all come up this path. Yeah, I have also been where you have been, but I have really, and to me, if we didn't have all this, we wouldn't be on this path. Yeah, so I look at every challenge that I have had as just taking me deeper and deeper into this path, to the point where I am very grateful for every single thing that happened in my life. Yeah, so
Ma'am,
learn to know that
replace
it's all steering you towards a path.
yeah, replacing the regular wheat and rice with millets, does it help in losing weight really?
It's everything. Yeah, it is drinking
Can you
water,
give
it is eating healthy,
example?
it is
Eat
fasting. It is a
what?
combination. Yeah, it is everything together, right? Then
Mm,
seeing you have this emotional eating, right? Some of us are prone to emotional eating. See when you eat, right? See what times you're opening the fridge. So there is a swadhyaya that comes in. So it is a whole package of things. It is not one thing in itself. What is your movement like, right? Do you exercise? Do you walk? Do you, or are you just sitting in front of the TV? I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying you have to know. Yeah, awareness. So write out all this stuff, right? It's really going deep within yourself and exploring all the different layers and activities that you have, and really seeing where is, and when you look at it, I promise you, you yourself will know where the problem is. But you need to look at it objectively. Yeah, that is where that awareness comes in, to be able to look at yourself and your actions in that space of non-judgmental awareness, without criticizing, without saying bad things to yourself. So, oh, I'm so terrible, I do all this, right? Don't do all that. Right, we are all on this journey. We have that urge to evolve, right? I appreciate the fact that you are so sincere in your desire to evolve. Yeah, you have all these many questions, and you really seem to
Yeah.
want to do
I
that,
really
right?
want to, but I don't have any direction right now. I'm just figuring it out.
Yeah.
And see you, I'm very much influenced and motivated. So thank you so much.
I'm telling you,
Wonderful. I
in few
think
years
I'll
time,
take the
we
last.
like this. And
Yes, I
people
will take the last question. Jayanti, if you are still there and you have something, you had raised your hand.
Yes, hi, I'm Jayanti, and I have a very different question. I observed that initially you spoke about yoga as an industry, and I also saw that through your presentation you had many quotes from the Bhagavad Gita. And I find that as I move around, yoga practitioners and instructors, seems to be a very it's very rare to find anybody quote the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, the maximum is the Patanjali Sutras, but other than that, there is a lot of attempt to separate the Sanatana Dharma and Yoga. And the final destination of yoga doesn't seem to be in anybody's perspective. It's the asanas, maybe pranayama, maybe a bit of a talk of the panchakoshas. So what do you think from the perspective of yoga going more worldwide or becoming more relevant to help people more? Can it really be separated out completely into just the physical aspect? And should there be more of a union with the other ancient knowledge systems that we have had?
Well, to me, there is no such thing as physical aspect, right? Because then it's not even yoga, right? It's just exercise. Like we were talking so much about the distinction between yoga and exercise, right? It's just exercise. It is only when the philosophy comes in, like I attribute all my learning to the wonderful teachers that I've had. Yeah, especially my first 18 years I've been with Manoj Kaimal, and he totally brought in all the scriptures into asana practice. Yeah, from the Bhagavad Gita to Vedanta to the Yoga Sutras to Hatha Yoga Pratipika, all of them came in. And now Dr. Ananda as well talks so much philosophy, and he is the one who really reiterates that Bhagavad Gita is really a yoga shastra. So there are wonderful teachers around,
Very.
and I think genuine seekers will find your way to a good teacher. They'll all. I've understood that all these things also I think about, and but I've accepted that the world, there's always dichotomy in the world. Yeah, there will always be believers, non-believers. There'll always be people who only want want an stretch out of it, or strength out of it. There'll always be people who are seeking existential questions. So that's the world. Yeah, good or bad, that's the world. Yeah, so if I don't know if you watched that the movie Don't Look Up, but it was such an accurate prediction of what goes on in the world today, where there is an existential crisis. There is this comet or satellite or something is going to crash into the earth, but people are like, how can I make a TV channel out of it? How can I, some people just don't believe it. So it's like that, there's all these varied perspectives. And it is up to us what we seek. And I think there is a huge element of grace to be guided to good teachers. And I really think to find great benefit in the practice, for transformation to happen at that deep cellular level, I truly feel philosophy is an integral part of the practice. Because without philosophy, there's no meaning. Yeah, it's a very physical practice, and that's not yoga really. So understanding all of this makes it so rich. Yeah, and the context is, everything is context, right? So this is just like lifting your arm, right? This is can be exercise, okay. And then if you look at it anatomically, there's some rotation that's going on, but can also be what moves my arm, right? There is that greater, grander question of that. So everything is context, and when you have knowledge, you can give it a more beautiful context, a more context that evolves your practice. And ultimately, we're all seeking to evolve, right? That is our human journey, whether we like it or not. We're all born on this world, and we will evolve, kicking and screaming. We will. Yeah, so we can evolve better by consciously seeking out knowledge and seeking out wisdom and trying to live that. So yes, I believe scriptural practice should come into asana practice a lot more. And the integration of that is what truly transforms human beings.
Thank you. That's quite encouraging to note.
Because otherwise, so you will get your hamstring stretched, you will get your core strengthened, you will get your back strengthened, but that's all you will get.
Thank you, Shailaja ji. Thank you, Jayanti. Shailaja ji has mentioned somewhere in the middle of the session, and that's truly the key which helps us most of the time. Is when you are in a situation where you start feeling really stressed or tight or anxious, just zoom out, look at the bigger picture, and you will immediately, you can have a different perspective to the situation, and it will really brings you out of that tightness and relaxes you, and you will be able to see the solution also. You'll be able to understand what you actually need to do if you try to look at the bigger picture. Same is with the practice of asana. We get too focused on stretches and perfect position that we forget the bigger picture, why we actually started yoga at the first place. Not for that perfect alignment, not for that stretch. It was meant for something else. The stretch is just the means to that. So don't forget the goal. Keep remembering what you were targeting from the beginning to the end, and it will help. It will help your asana practice. It will help you through your pranayama, through your philosophy, everything. It will help. I hope you all had a wonderful session, and I hope you enjoyed the knowledge shared by Shailaja ji. And I'm thankful, Shailaja ji, for giving your time. It was really good. It felt like a complete revision of Patanjali Yoga Sutra and everything what we did in our courses. I think we went through from beginning to end, the complete revision. But it was really good. It was really wonderful. And thank you so much. We'll close here. And we'll meet tomorrow for our last session for this Women's Day celebration. Please join in on time for a wonderful speaker, Miss Sinu Joseph, who's going to be talking about the science behind the traditional practices of menstruation and things like why we don't go to the temple during menstruation. What is the science behind it? And why we should follow or why we should not follow certain things. So please join in tomorrow on time, 5 minutes before the session begins. I will share the link and all through the group, WhatsApp group. Thank you so much, Shailaja ji. Namaste, everyone. Happy Women's Day to everyone again.
Namaste.